Hi, I'm going to talk about the history of farming, in particular factory farms, which have overrun most developed countries. Now, factory farming first started around 1926 and it started with birds. And what I mean by factory farming is large, intensive facilities or buildings with tens of thousands of animals. Um, so it started with birds and then really took off in the 1960s and 70s. Now, currently, we treat animals worse than ever in history. And we consume more animals than ever in history from the worst conditions. Um, so, the definition of factory farming or animal agribusiness, they have some certain terms that they've coined. Concentrated animal feeding operation, or CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation, CAFO. Kind of like they give terms to things like we're harvesting the animal and such. So most people think this is how animals are raised still, actually. Actually, many people in the South and farmers think this is how they're raised. And really, this is how they're raised at the bottom. Nearly all animals, especially birds and pigs, come from huge factory farms. They've actually undercut small family farms and are putting them out of business. There's groups like farmaid.org that have tried to help small farmers stay alive, but they are unable to compete. This is because factory farms do whatever's most profitable, not what is ethical or anything. All they do is massive confinement, and when you're mass producing, you can also lower the costs. So the small farmers, as we've seen in some Purdue documentaries, yes, Purdue, they have signed contracts. Some of the small farmers that are still in business, like I said, a vast majority of them have went out of business. But what you've had is they sign contracts with supply, and they are a supplier, and they're told when, what, and how to do. They make them do renovations and build huge facilities that can cost up to $400,000. They can't even have windows or anything of that nature, and like Purdue has all these guidelines, for example, and they sign these contracts. And then they risk, they're kind of indebted to them, and then they're at risk, like if demand goes down, they can just stop doing it or terminate their contract, because obviously the bigger guys have the upper hand, and they know how to do the proper contracts in their favor. But they have to use company-approved buildings, and the farmers supply the land to deal with the waste, which is a huge issue, public health as well. And they provide the food, which is usually just corn, which is subsidized heavily with our taxes, and transit. That's what they provide. So most of the labor is actually provided by migrants, which are not even real citizens, which many people would call them illegal immigrants. But let's talk about, that's because Americans don't want to do this horrible job, which is unsafe and has many downsides. Now, a large facility is determined to be over 30,000 birds if they have a liquid manure system. If they don't, it's up to 125,000 birds per facility. That's CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation. Eggs can have up to 82,000 to be considered a large facility, from 30,000 to 82,000 under one roof or grounds. A pig facility can have up to 10,000, cattle up to 1,000 veal, 700 dairy, and 1,000 livestock or cattle. Livestock, I find that to be a disrespectful term as well. Now, factory farming. There's about 10 billion land animals raised for 360 million people in the US, and most comes from factories. 54% of animals come from 5% of the farms. Yes, 54% of animals come from 5% of the farms. So these big corporations have taken over. They have big lobby groups and negotiate subsidies, welfare subsidies from our government. And that's part of the reason why it's so cheap. But like I said, these facilities do certain things, like they keep pigs in gestation crates, they debeak birds because they're overcrowded. The male chicks for the egg industry, millions and millions of them, are ground up in mercerators. Females are kept in tiny battery cages the size of like a piece of paper or a file drawer. Pigs are castrated, tail and ear docked, and then they force breed dairy cows. Contributes to the veal industry and stuff. So they are crueler than ever in history, and we consume more animal products than ever in history because it's done so cheap and the subsidies. Now there's many other downsides. Waste lagoons are horrible for our environment, noxious air. Antibiotics in America, most are given to animals so they don't have disease outbreaks, and we're becoming resistant to these antibiotics. And there's very few laws. The USDA is kind of in cahoots with it. 65% of pigs, for example, have pneumonia lesions in their lungs from studies. And ammonia from the ammonia and waste runoff that they're living in. In 1999, 60% of pigs, 35% of cattle, and nearly all poultry were from factory farms. Nearly all. I mean, that's over 99%. 35% recommended doing a broiler chicken facility to others. So only 35% that are in the business recommend doing it. So most of them don't believe in doing it after they get stuck in these contracts. So we've had family farms replaced with many family farms replaced with very few huge industrial agribusiness corporations. And it's the high cost of cheap animal products, which is destroying our healthcare system, our environment, small businesses, small family farms that were semi-sustainable and more ethical. So I don't think that's ever coming back. The real solution is to simply leave animals alone and go vegan. So thank you for watching. My sources were the Humane Society as well as some other various sources. So factory farming, since the 1926 birds started, 60s and 70s it took off. We treat animals worse than ever in history, and we eat more animals than ever in history. Please defund factory farms. Stop subsidizing it with my taxes. Taxmeat.com instead, and look up a factory farm video, and please share the truth online. Thank you. I hope it was educational.